welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing for you guys the StairMaster strategy. There was a previous video that was unbeknownst to me that was kind of put out there to the mass public, and there was so much interest in knowing more about that strategy and breaking it down for you guys a little bit more. I do apologize for that video. I will link it here in the upper right hand corner. I did not think that video was going to be as popular as it was. That was meant to just be for those who are trading StairMaster strategy with me during the last season of Strategy Wars. Those people had been trading that strategy for over a month and already knew the basics of the strategy. Therefore, I didn't really have to go over the actual strategy itself so much, or the indicators that I was using as specific as some of you had requested. So this video is going to do that for you, and I will run through it a little bit more in detail. As far as the indicators used, the time frames it works on, the pairs that have been used, I'll show a little bit of back testing. I'll explain the entry and exit rules as far as the strategy goes, and then my version of adding in a little bit of price action with it to help narrow down entries and which ones you would take and which ones you wouldn't take. I'll also review some of the settings and stuff like that. For those of you who are not in the trading floor community, I'll go over that for you guys as well, as far as like what indicators make up the StairMaster. So if you are using your own trading view and you want to just use the available indicators on TradingView to mimic it, you can do that as well. Okay, so let's jump into the actual strategy and some information about it first. The first video that was pretty popular, I did link up here in the right hand corner. So if you guys are interested in knowing more about it and you like live trading, that was a live recorded trading session for me where I talk about analysis in real time. I'm showing my trades taken in real time, and that is all there in that video. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go ahead and check it out. If you needed to know more about it, then this is your video. So let's get into some of the rules about this. First and foremost, StairMaster has been tested, which means like my version of back testing. If you guys are newer to my channel, I'm pretty thorough with my back testing. If you're not newer, you know, like we back test a lot. So it has been officially back tested on 1 minute, 5 minute, and 15 minute time frame. We know that it works on US 30, NAS 100, Ethereum, and most of the basic pairs. Any of the exotics, you guys would have to test yourselves. If you're talking about futures market or a stock market, you would potentially have to test those yourselves. I believe futures would probably work pretty similar since US 30 and NAS 100 work well with it. But again, it has not officially been tested, so you would have to do that yourselves. And Ethereum is the only crypto that we know and we have tested it with. The settings are a little bit different, so you would have to find all of that information in the trading floor community. We give you all of that in the back testing stuff. I'll show you a quick glance of what that would look like. For instance, you would come into the back testing data and you can see on the bottom we have all of these different like settings tabs where you can see all the different things, gold, Ethereum, like NAS, a bunch of them there, and different versions of it, stuff like that. So you can find all of that on the actual trading floor if you wanted to know those settings. And that's if you're using the private indicator StairMaster. As far as the indicators used, there are 3 of them that are being used. This is on purpose because that allows you to use free TradingView. You don't have to have a higher subscription if you can't afford it. However, if you have a Pro or Pro Plus and you don't have StairMaster, because it is a private customized indicator that we offer in the trading floor, you can still do this, but just know that you will have to be able to have at least 6 indicators on your charts, which means you need to have Pro Plus or higher for TradingView. So that's kind of why we can customize them and consolidate it, but I know a lot of you guys complain about that. The reason we customize them and offer them that way is just so you guys can use a free version. And we give it to you as part of being part of the membership of Trading Floor, because I mean, honestly, the monthly membership for Trading Floor is cheaper than Pro Plus monthly or higher. But yeah, you guys, whatever you'd want to do, if you want to do it free version, you can mimic it, and I'll go through the indicators you will need to do to mimic it. If you are in the trading floor, you don't need to worry about it. You just load up the StairMaster indicator and you can use free TradingView and you'll be fine because it's only 3 indicators. So the indicators you're using are Consolidation Zones Live. That is a free indicator. You just search it up here in your indicators, come up to search, type in Consolidation Zones Live, and it's by the Lonesome. Then the next one is the StairMaster one. Like I said, this one is a private one that is customized for the trading floor members. That is going to be in your invite-only scripts once you join. In order to get it, it is linked below. You have to go to the trading floor website and obviously become a member. And it's one of the 6 customized ones you get. Plus there's a bunch of other free ones that we've been offering out on TradingView too. But StairMaster is one of the customized ones. However, again, if you do not want to be a member, you can still do it. So don't curse me out in the comments below, you guys. I give you exactly what they're made up of. It's just we have customized stuff that we do, tweak the code a little bit to be a little more customized, but you can still do it for free. So don't freak out. Just know that you have to be allowed to have at least 6 indicators to do the strategy that. So if you're going to do it for free with all of the TradingView indicators that are available, you need to have the fractals on. It needs to be a TSV. You need to have an RSI and MA. This is a new thing on TradingView in the last, I want to say maybe year or so. So it's all one indicator. It's an RSI with an MA, so you can add that in. And then you need a separate moving average. When you're looking at your settings for that, you are going to potentially have to play around a little bit. But your fractals, you would probably want to set to 3. That would be a stair sensitivity. Your TSV, we keep default, so it's 13 and 7. Your MA source, you're going to make it 75 and smoothed. And then your RSI MA, we use a 150 and closed simple 35. And that should be what you would need in order to be able to mimic similar enough. You might have to play a little bit with your guys' settings. We don't test it that way. We just test it with our customized indicator, but that is what you would need to get pretty close. When all of these fractals, TSV, RSI, MA, as well as your consolidation zones and your stochastic RSI all line up, then you would enter in. It's a little more complicated, but again, if you're trying to do it for free, it's still possible. The third indicator you're going to need is the stochastic RSI, and that is what's down here on the bottom. Again, just searchable in your indicators, and you can just use the built-in in TradingView, which is this stochastic RSI. So as far as the indicator settings, consolidation zones live, that was one of the free ones. That's just default. You don't need to change anything, just 10 and 15. As far as StairMaster goes, if you're using the trading floor indicator, so you guys will see what I do is I keep everything default for this. The only thing that I do change is I change my moving average to 75 because we are going to be using lower time frames like the 1 and the 5 minute in order to get the entries. I find the 75 is a little bit better. But if you are more experienced, feel free to play around with your moving averages. If you have one you prefer, you can play with it. I personally like the 75 and I keep it as smoothed. I do keep on the MA bias filter, which allows the indicator to only print the little sneakers when it's above the moving average or below it. So that way I'm staying with trend. I'm only getting signals that are staying with trend. As you guys can see here, our little moving average has the TSV built into it. So the TSV is color changing. So when you see the blue, you'd be looking at buys. When you see the purple, potentially sells. And the sneaker will only print when all of these align. So you'd have to be breaking out of a fractal. You'd have to have the TSV either purple for sells or blue for buys. You'd have to have the RSI MA crossed, so either below it for sells or above it for buys. And again, the MA would also have to be taken into consideration as far as the overall MA. So that is a lot going on there, and that's why we've condensed it down and customized it for you guys. So all you just need to know now is if you have a sneaker that prints, that it's potentially an entry, and all of this stuff is already happening and coded in for you. And then the last thing is the stochastic RSI for settings. It's just standard, so I do not change anything. It is worth noting though, for the StairMaster one, just to come back to you guys, I do change one thing in the style, and I turn off my ceiling and my floor. If I turn them on, I will show you guys. That just puts those lines, which just looks way too messy for me personally. Like this looks like, ugh. So I turn them off, but turning them off doesn't mean it takes away from the indicator. It's still factoring them in. That's just your fractals. I don't like them. I think it just looks too cluttered for me. But if you do like keeping your fractals on, then you would keep your ceiling and your floors on. I turn them off. That's the only thing that I customize in the style. Otherwise, as far as the rules go, it seemed kind of complicated because I just explained to you all the indicators and the two different versions. Whether you're in the trading floor, it's actually much more simple. You only need these 3 indicators. If you're not, it's a little more complicated, but I mean, that's the trade-off. You're getting to do it completely for free, but you would have to have all of these things lining up, as well as a breakout of consolidation zones and a confirmation on the stochastic RSI. Again, whatever version you're doing, but I'm going to explain my version with StairMaster, and if you guys are doing the free version, you'll just have to kind of follow along. So as far as the rules go, the marking up, what I'll do, and I'll walk you guys through an example, is I typically just mark up on the 1 hour. So what I'll do is I'll mark up the high and the low where the 1 hour kind of currently is trading within. And I'll explain it when I show a 1 hour, but that's the idea. I mark a support and a resistance, the high or the low area. Then I drop to the 15-minute time frame. I will mark a mid-level in between them, usually just one level. I don't mark multiple levels unless there's something very obvious. I try to limit the number of levels I put in because if you guys have any trading experience or at all, you know it is very easy to overmark support and resistance levels. So I try to limit the levels to very prominent ones, key levels, so that way I'm not getting too confused with my levels. So I will mark 1 mid-level typically. On rare occasion, if it's necessary, 2 max. Then I will drop to either the 5-minute or the 1-minute time frame for my entry. And what we're looking for in order to actually be able to enter is a breakout of a consolidation zones box, a sneaker to print in the proper direction, and the stochastic RSI to be crossing in the proper direction. If all 3 of those criteria are met, then you would be able to potentially look for an entry. I'll explain a proper entry as I go through an example with you guys, but those are the 3 basic criteria that you need to have met. As far as the stochastic RSI, I know somebody will ask, it does not matter if it is overbought or oversold. I do not care if it's above an 80 or a 70 or below a 20 or a 30. I don't care about that. I just care that it is crossing in the same direction as my sneaker. So I will show you guys now a little bit of examples of criteria. Okay, so first off, for reference, you can see my arrow pointing to the sneaker. That's a sneaker. If it is printing above it and it's obviously crossing down with a bearish candle, then that would mean you're looking for potential sell opportunities. The other thing that you will see is a consolidation box. These lines that you're seeing that are red and green and then have like shaded blue boxes, that is the consolidation zones live. Basically, they're forming almost like mini consolidation zones, and when you have a break from them, you can kind of look at maybe momentum is changing, perhaps the volume is there to push the market. So the idea here is that it is a breakout strategy, and when you have something like a consolidation zones area and then a strong candle with a sneaker print, and then lastly, the crossing of the stochastic RSI here, that would potentially be an entry candle for you. I'll mark it so you can see it all lined up like this. So basically you have the breakout of this area here where price has broken what was previously consolidating. You have a sneaker saying that you're looking for a sell, you're under the moving average, and you have a crossing here of your stochastic RSI in a downward motion. So all of this agrees with a potential sell, and you would be able to take a trade there. What this would look like is enter at close of candle. You know, you'd want to be putting your stop loss probably somewhere a little bit safer, and if it helps you to use these zone areas, you can definitely use the consolidation zones. You know, kind of use whatever the most recent one is or wherever you feel that the market would be safe to potentially, if it came back and retested. Right there would probably be fine. Obviously, this is hindsight I'm showing you guys, but that's the rough idea of how you would just enter into a potential entry. And then you would want to be using market structure to the left to target like a proper reward. You know, I typically look here if I'm at least 1.5 or so, I'll look to take my profits. Like this wouldn't quite be 1.5, so I'd probably target a little bit lower, and you know, probably in this area is where I realistically would have been targeting. And you know, from the past, if you guys have watched my videos, you know I don't tend to go for a wick way down here. I tend to go for where price is more popular, is the best way to explain it. Like if you're seeing more price action, I tend to be a little more on the cautious side. So realistically, that's probably where I would have taken it to. Obviously, it goes much further, and you could at that point decide to trail, take partials, whatever. This is just to show you guys a proper entry. So that is the idea of what an entry would look like. And, that's the criteria being met. As far as how I personally mark things up on a actual higher time frame down to a lower one, I'll show you guys an example of what that looks like using the current market. Okay, so you guys can see I'm here on NASDAQ 100. I'm just going to show that because that's typically one of the things that I do trade. And this is the current market on the 1 hour time frame. So what I do is I'll come in, I do use horizontal lines, but you guys can use boxes if it helps you. But what I'll do is I'll kind of look at where the market is currently trading. It's currently trading right here. The market is actually open, so you'll be seeing it move as I show this. But basically what I'll look at is the high, which is pretty much in here. I don't like to go all the way up to wicks. I like to grab most of the price action, so that way if price does come to retest, where is it likely to hit? Like, what is the higher probability? The higher probability is that it will hit the more popular area that was like kind of in here, but still being a high versus all the way up here. So I tend to kind of like sit around this area. I am always a little more cautious. And then again, the bottom, I am fine with this because this is a lot of price action in here. But again, not really just going to go for one wick. I'll go for a couple more of these bars. And then you can see there's some more price action over here in that area anyhow. So as you guys can see, I just kind of threw in labels here to keep us organized, but oh, you know what, let me color code them because I do this in real life. I do color code my system for me so I know. So I color code my lines so I know if they are a 1 hour, a 15, whatever. What I've done here is what I said in part of the rules for me was to look at the 1 hour and mark up the current like high and low support and resistance area that we're trading in. So this would be my 1 hour support and this is my 1 hour resistance. That's all we need to do in the 1 hour time frame. So then we look at the 15-minute. So now that we're on the 15-minute time frame, what we're going to do is we're going to drop in a mid-level. So looking at the 15-minute time frame, you want to kind of find an area like where does price tend to be forming like your own little mini support and resistance areas within. Basically, what I'm seeing is kind of in like this area I'm liking. You can see here if you know anything about letters, like when people talk about letters, I mean, it's kind of wonky looking, but you almost have like an M shape. And then what you have is a little neckline here where you would have like a break of a neckline. Again, it goes into like a W shape. So this would be your first leg of the W, comes up, comes down to make your double bottom, comes back up to break that mid zone that we just marked. Again, would be like a little neckline, comes up to retest your 1 hour. So if you know anything about that kind of stuff, that's kind of what I'm seeing. If you don't stress over it too much. That's not that important for you to understand. Just know that I'm seeing a lot of price action in those areas. So what I'm seeing is here was a mini support, here was a mini resistance. Again, lots of price action within this area and kind of working as price came down, and you can see like almost wicked up here to a little bit of a resistance. Here was support. Here was a little bit of resistance, but broke through it again. So I like this as like my mid-level for my 15. So I'm just going to mark this up. And I'll change my color just so that way I can visually keep track of where I'm at. Then I know as the market's moving, like am I at approaching a 15-minute level based on the color, or a 1 hour, or whatever you guys decide to do, whatever time frames you want to mark out. But that is a little tip or trick I suggest, is color coding things, so it helps to keep you a little bit more focused on what you're looking at. So that's where we're at on the 15-minute. I'm not entering it on the 15-minute. I'm going to look at 1 or 5-minute because that's how I was trading this for Strategy Wars. So that's what you guys were asking. So now you can either drop to your 5 or your 1 minute, depending on what you want your entry time frame to be. So we can drop to the 5-minute time frame. And this is where we're at when we're looking at the 5-minute time frame in comparison to like where were we on the higher time frames in the overall market, like where is it at. So you can see market currently is kind of coming down and hitting this 15 and potentially breaking through it, which potentially could be an opportunity to get into a sell, but we would have to wait to see if a sneaker prints. But I will get into that in a moment so we can see what that will look like. So let me zoom in so you guys can see the candles better, but I just wanted to show you guys, like, the 1 hour is down here for support, 1 hour for resistance is up here, and we're kind of just dancing around this 15-minute mid-level. So that's where we're at, which I personally like to be around if I'm going to look for an entry, because I know it's a decent level and it will most likely try to break this level, and that will give me at least a 1.5 usually, if not more, if I'm going for a 1 hour resistance or support. So I like to kind of use these levels to trade between. So if I'm near a 15-minute mid-level and on a 1 minute or 5 minute I'm getting a signal, I know I have enough room to potentially either, you know, if it's a buy, which I'll zoom in and show you guys this in a minute, don't worry, but if it was something like a sneaker where there was a buy here and it's breaking at this point, I have enough room to get a decent amount of profit to make that trade worth it. Or if it was a sell, which it looks like it's trying to sell now, and it breaks it, if I got a sneaker again, I would know that I would have enough room to potentially enter around in this area for a trade and potentially hold it to a 1 hour level, which again would be more than enough for a risk to reward to make that trade worth it. So that's kind of why I do this. Also, these are stronger key levels because they are higher time frame levels. Okay, so let's get into an actual example. I'll zoom in so you guys can see what the candles look like a little bit better. I showed you guys the 5 minutes so you could kind of get an idea, but I typically do trade this on the 1 minute for me personally, and that's what many of you guys had wanted to see more of. So I will show you guys this on the 1 minute as far as like entries, but the 5 minute is the same exact idea. So just take what I'm showing you guys on the 1 minute and you would just apply it to the 5 minute as far as the rationale for entering and exiting. These zones are the same thing. You're not going to change them. So the 1 hour and the 15 minute, they stay on there. So you can see I still have my 1 hour resistance and support and my mid-level. These have not changed. The prices haven't changed. All of it's the same. I showed you guys the 5 minute quickly just so you could see how it looked. But I liked the 1 minute when I was doing strategy wars because I needed more potential opportunities at these key levels. And I'll show you guys today and some of the entries that actually, like, there's one now that's looks pretty good, so how that's playing out and working. I'll show you guys the sell opportunity right now. It's just, you can watch it play out in real time while I'm showing you the others. So the 15-minute mid-level is here. That's where price has kind of been bouncing around, and I like to see it at these levels. I typically am only interested if price is somewhere between the mid-level or the 1 hour resistance or support. Otherwise, I'm not all that interested when it's kind of just like floating around in between them. And the reason is there's not enough room for it to move to one of these levels for me to get good enough of a reward usually. I like to see them around this area. What I really like about this, what recently happened, is you can see that when I zoom in, this sneaker has printed and it has broken and closed below my 15-minute mid-level. So this to me looks great. My stochastic RSI is also crossing in a downward motion. Again, I do not care if it is overbought or oversold. I only care that this crossing has occurred. And as you guys can see down here, it is small, but the K and the D are crossing in a downward motion. I have a sneaker that's printed and I have broken through my 15-minute mid-level. I do not have a consolidation zones live box here, but that's not that big of a deal. These are more meant for people who are kind of struggling, and I will show you at the end of the video some backtesting data where there is a strategy for people who are still newer, that are still kind of learning how to mark these levels and trusting their levels. So if you're still newer and you're still trying to learn, one, I do suggest that you just don't trade on the 1 and 5 minute time frame yet. You're still a little bit too new and they can be pretty intense. There is a 15-minute time frame that we have tested, and it's literally just so simple. It's just rule based, and that is something that we show you guys on the trading floor as well and show you how to do it. We have all the back testing data to show it. It's not as profitable, but it is still very profitable if you trade it during the proper sessions. I'll show you at the end, like I'm saying, but if you are somebody who is like really dead set on using just consolidation zones lives and only trading the breakouts with the sneakers, there is a version of that, and like I said, I'll show you the data for that. But for me, you know, I am a more experienced trader and I can see when a breakout happens. I can identify that this was a level here and that the market has come below it, and that this is my key level on a higher time frame, and that I am interested in. So I don't care that consolidation zones live didn't print a box. An indicator is only as good as the person that knows how to use it. So I don't care that it's not there. I care that on my 15-minute time frame that this sneaker printed and broke through it, and that my Stochastic RSI is crossing in a downward motion. So for me, this is a great entry. The reason is because when I take my short tool and I mark it up, you would enter in at close of candle. And stop loss, I would personally put it just slightly above the moving average in the event that it tries to come and pull back and retest. It looks like it already has pulled back a little bit. I would probably go a little bit above that. And then, you want to target at least a 1.5. So this one is still playing out because you're not at 1.5 just yet. What I like to do when I target my 1.5 is mark up the price and then look to the left and see, like, does that area that I'm hitting with my 1.5, does it make sense? Like, is it an area of interest for price to potentially go to? Is there a high enough probability? And I want to see that there's a decent amount of price action at that area. And there is. There's definitely a lot of price action in here. There's a nice wick down here. So I'm more than okay with this area as a potential take profit. If you, for instance, were marking it up and you go like kind of looking at the most recent market area and all you're seeing is like one random maybe little area, like I'm trying to find like something just very like nothing's really there, kind of like just in this, like one random candle here and maybe one wick and maybe one something here. Like that's not really a lot of price action. So you would want to make sure you're adjusting it, but still being worth it to enter in the trade. So for me, I like to go for a 1.5 to be safe. That's your safety net. That's what I know works well for me, and it happens to hit more of the time than not. That's kind of your like secure profits area. So 1.5 for me is where I like to take my first trade's profit. And then ideally the goal would be that you could eventually target your 1 hour support. And this is why I like trying to get entries around either the mid-level or off either getting rejections off of a resistance or a bounce off of support, because it gives you the opportunity to have a lot of space to work with. If it actually comes all the way down to the 1 hour, you have a potential 5 reward now, which is great. Like I said, I like to target at 1.5 for my first trade. If you guys follow me and you know my style trading, I do something called stacking where I'll take 2 entries and one of them would be a 1.5 reward usually, as long as it makes sense to what I'm seeing to the left using market structure and some price action. If it goes well, I would have my other second trade running, and then that's where I would just start kind of trailing along using structure again to the left, like looking for other key areas. There's a nice area in here where all of this price is kind of happening. So that would be a 2. And then you would just kind of trail behind your trade, and the goal would be to hit this 1 hour. And then if I could hit the 1 hour, then I'm done, because that's a great reward. So my first trade would go for a 1.5, and then my second trade could potentially be going as far as a 5. All along trailing that second trade, so you're never risking the profits that you've secured with your 1.5. If I've lost you guys a little bit with the risk management, don't stress too much about that. That's something that you personally will have to work with depending on your own accounts and your own style of risk managing. This is just how I personally am doing it when it comes to this strategy, and it's kind of just my style in general with any strategy. So that's kind of how I was trading this, and a lot of you guys had kind of asked a little bit more about that. So because I stack, I do look for a 1.5 first and foremost. I do suggest that you look for a 1.5 as long as it makes sense again to what's happening to the left, and then deciding some way to secure profits, whether that's taking partials for you, whether that's moving to a break even for you or whatnot. But I would just make sure that you are securing your trade and never letting it go too far in a reward and then losing money that you could have had secured. So make sure that you're always kind of being defensive about your trades and securing what you have earned and made already. Nothing is worse than getting something like, targeting potentially maybe something like this, and then maybe the market only comes to like here and then reverses and stops you out. Nothing is worse than getting something like almost 4 or 5% in profit and then you lose it all because you didn't secure. So be smart about your trading. Make sure that you are actually securing your profits. That is my best advice to you guys. So I'll mark this up for the 1.5 and let it kind of play out while I'll show you guys an entry for a buy. So it's getting pretty close there now. So that is a sell entry. That's how that would have looked. And that is, today's current market. And the other entry that looks interesting to me would be the buy that happened earlier in the morning. So let's look here. When we're looking here, you can see that we have a sneaker that prints. And we had a crossing on the stochastic RSI. And this one actually meets all of our criteria, which is really nice. So what we have is the breakout of the consolidation zones. So this lines up perfectly, this zone, with our 15-minute time frame. You can see the dotted lines from them are the red ones and the green ones. And then we have our sneaker that's printing here. The candle that it's printing on is breaking above it. And we also have a crossing on our stochastic RSI in an upwards motion. So you can see the K and the D lines, both of these orange and blue lines are crossing upwards. All the criteria met. So we have a breakout, which is here. That's criteria 1. 2 is that we have a sneaker with that breakout. And then 3 is that the stochastic RSI is crossing in an upward motion, all signaling a potential buy. So we could enter in on this trade. We'll take our long tool, enter in at close of candle. Stop loss should be just kind of under the zone area. Like, this is where you guys are going to have to test a little bit, play around with it. But my advice is never to be just here. Don't be right here on the actual area that you're looking to break through. So the 15-minute mid zone, it shouldn't be on it, because in the event that you break out and you come back and you retest it, you may get wicked out and then it will bounce off and go back in the direction you wanted. So be cautious, but also be aware of where your stop losses are going. Give your trade the ability to play out, to actually move the way it needs to. Remember, this is a breakout strategy and you are not breaking out and waiting for a retest here. You are just taking the breakout. So you have to be aware of what a retest is. If you're not, then you're probably not ready for the strategy, and that's okay. Learn a little bit about retest, but be aware of what a retest is. If you know what they are and what I'm talking about, that be prepared for a potential retest when you're placing your stop loss, because you're not waiting for that retest. You are getting in on the move before it. So you need to make sure you're being defensive enough with your stop loss to allow a retest safely to happen and not get wicked out. You want to target again of roughly about a 1.5. So we'll kind of drop it there. Look to the left. What would that look like for us? And this area here obviously is an area of interest for me. You can kind of see these would have been previous highs back, before this whole drop happened. But that's too low of a reward. I would barely be getting like a 0.5. I don't necessarily want that. If I can help it, I don't want more, something like a 1.5. So we're not going to use these as our areas. We're going to have to keep looking roughly to where a 1.5, which looks great. This looks fantastic. So I'm kind of zoomed out here, guys, so I apologize. But just know that this price point where I'm at here, where that dotted line is, that white dotted line, is where 1.5 would be. If you look, when I'm kind of looking over here, you're literally just under a nice area. So all in here. So the probability of it hitting up in this area, I'll circle the area I'm talking about for you guys. You guys can see this area that has nice heavy price action in here and here, a little bit up here. The probability of the price hitting that area is really good. And with this 1.5, we're just under it. So I'm more than happy with that. It most likely will go just above. So I do like this 1.5, and that's something I would go with. And then as you can see, it did actually hit that area that I had circled like way back here. It did come up to this area that was definitely more interesting. But again, it's not about being greedy and overholding. You want to just be smart, secure what profits you can, because you don't want to overextend your rewards. You don't want your first trade to be this. Like, you don't want to be going for a 3, because the likelihood of it getting to a 3 is much lower than a 1.5. Take your reward here. You're on a 1-minute time frame. You are not trying to get massive trades. You potentially will, and if you're smart about your trailing and you're just like kind of pulling out partials, you still will do fine as well. But just remember to make sure you're securing the profits along the way. 1-minute time frame is fast. It's no joke when it does start to reverse on you. You will lose your profits. So if you were holding all the way up here for that 3, you would have gotten stopped out, and you would have potentially been as high as almost probably 2, even over 2, and you lost that when you could have secured it. and still made money even though the trade comes against you. For me personally, when I'm trading this, like I said, I'm pretty defensive as far as like securing my profits, taking at the 1.5 first, and then deciding if I want to hold or extend beyond that to one of these key areas, one of these stronger levels. This would have been a win for me today. And these other trades that are in here, I'm not interested in. So this sneaker was one entry. This one, I would not have been interested in, and I'll explain why. Because the reward when we take the long tool just isn't quite worth it to me. So you would have had to enter it at the close of candle, and your stop loss actually couldn't be here. And this is a problem a lot of people have been doing. So your reward would have, to get a 1.5 would have looked something like this. If you could have put your stop loss here safely. But I would not have put my stop loss here. And the reason is as I stated, we broke through. We never retested. So you have to assume that you potentially have to retest, which means you need to come to this level, maybe even slightly below it. Which means now you are targeting up here. You're still well past your 1 hour resistance to get a 1.5 out of this. So this trade to me, not worth it. This risk to reward, this here is too risky for me to assume that the market will break a 1 hour. I have no clue if it will. A 1 hour is a much stronger time frame and a zone. And that's my rationale there. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, but if you just put your stop loss here. And potentially this could have worked out for some of you, but I don't do it that way. I cover myself as if it potentially will retest. And, in this particular case, this would have stopped you out. You wouldn't have been able to get this trade. If you were just looking for smaller rewards here and there, like 0.5s, potentially you guys can do something like a 0.5 or a 1-to-1 and stuff like this. But again, I caution you from going too far away from this mid zone or too far away from like a rejection off a 1 hour resistance or support. You don't want to be trading this middle stuff in between them, because the risk to reward versus where you have to place your stop loss just isn't going to be worth it. You want to wait for price to be closer to these areas. So this was an entry today. This would have been a winner. Like I said, I wouldn't have been interested in this one. I wouldn't have been interested in this sneaker. And then this one is, this one's now a winner too today. So congratulations. You had two winners. You would have made 3% today if you had traded during this time frame. For me personally, I do trade during the mixed session or like the first half of New York. I do like that the most with this because that's when US 30 and NAS 100 move the most. That's when I trade. That's what I like to trade. The volume and volatility is there for it to move this enough. I do suggest whatever you personally like to trade, that you're trading it during the session, that it is open and moving. You want volume and volatility there. You need it there to make this strategy work. It's a breakout strategy. Like, you have to be breaking these zones and moving beyond them. So if there's nobody there to help push the market, you're just going to get stuck in consolidation and most likely you will get frustrated. So definitely trade this during the session that is trading the pair that you want to trade, if that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is, say you want to trade German 30, then you need to trade it during London session. You want to trade US 100 or US 30, you need to trade it during New York. So whatever time frame during New York, preferably during the beginning of New York when it's opening, because you will get the most volume and volatility there. So during those first like 4 hours of that session. If you're trading something like JPY and GBP pairs, like JPY pairs, you would want to trade during Tokyo session or GBP pairs during London session. So just make sure you're kind of matching your pairs up with whatever session it is that you're trading and when the market is trading it. Like, when are they open and there to move it? So these are examples, like I showed you, a buy and a sell and how they would play out. This one's still playing out very nicely. So you would have hit your 1.5, and at 1.5, you can decide what you would want to do here. You know, for me, like I said, I would have been stacking, which means I would have two placed here, and it would be something like this. And, you know, still keeping the same stop losses, but this one would have hit, so this, you would have your 1.5 secured. And now that 1.5 is secured, usually what I do if I like the way it looks, is I will move my second trade to break even. So you can't lose. You've made 1.5 and you cannot lose anything on this trade. And you would just kind of trail along. So once it hits 1.5, you kind of start looking at market structure. Where does the next take profit make sense? And in this case, the next logical place, market's kind of getting close to here. I would probably target in this level. So it would be something like here. Again, I don't go to wicks. I don't go all the way down. I like better probability with more price action, where it was priced the most popular. But that would be kind of like how I would do it. So I cannot lose now on this trade. So you go from having a positive 1.5 that you know you've secured, and now you have a trade that is at literally at break even, and you can kind of even trail even if you want to secure. I do tend to do this as well. I might secure like a little extra in profit, like maybe use some of your zones and then maybe secure, you know, maybe you secured like 0.5 or something there. So maybe you now have 2% between the two of them, but let it keep running. So you can still trade that second trade, or if you took partials on this first one, say you only want to take one trade, that is okay as well. But you make sure you take partials out. Take out a certain percentage of your trade that you've secured and then move to break even. Move this trade to break even so you cannot lose your money. Try not to throw your money back in the market out of greed. You want to make sure that you guys are securing what you can when you're making it, because as you can see, this is a lovely move that's happening here. So you can see, I'll zoom in a little bit better so you can kind of get an idea for what the candles look like and like what the entries would have looked like. So this would have been your buy that made sense because you broke the 15-minute mid-level. This would have been the sell because you broke that 15-minute mid-level. Everything else in between this 15-minute mid-level and 1 hour where there were signals, I don't care about these guys. Like I said, not worth it to me, based off of the risk to reward that would have been there. So I wouldn't have even bothered with them. So that is how I've been trading it. I hope that helped you guys a little bit. I will quickly show you guys just another version, like I said, for those of you who feel like I might have lost you here and maybe this support and resistance and the idea of trying to trade between them is a little bit too hard for you. There is a version that we do offer just using consolidation zones live. And I don't want to get too into that strategy just because that is for people who are just in the trading floor community and just using the sneakers as well as the consolidation zones live. So those of you in YouTube world, if you don't plan to use this version and you're going to use the free version with all the other indicators I showed you, how you would just wait for all of them to line up as well. They should all line up and signal around the same time that a sneaker would. So you would just have all your indicators loaded up on the chart. It's 6 of them total when they all agreed. So you would have to wait for a breakout of a fractal. You would have to wait for the TSV to be the proper direction. You would have to wait for the RSI and MA to be below it or above it. You would need all that plus the stochastic RSI, as well as if you want the consolidation zones live on to kind of help you. If you had all of that, if you were trading at the free version. It is definitely a little more complicated for you guys, and I do apologize, and that is why we customize them to simplify it, because it's a lot to put on there for somebody to follow along. So we try to make it a little bit easier just using 3 or less of them. But for those of you who are just looking for the YouTube version, you can probably stop watching here. Thanks for watching. For those of you who are in the trading floor and you want to trade something like this, but you're still learning, what you'll do is come into your trading floor, go to strategies. You can come to StairMaster and you'll see the different versions here. So deep dive just tells you a little bit more about the indicator. The revamped is what I will show you now. That's what I'm going to show you the data on. And then what I just showed you guys in this video was the more advanced version, which isn't listed on here, but you guys can watch it on YouTube. All right, so what you'll do is come under StairMaster, hit on data. So it'll open up the backtesting data sheet for you. The first tab you'll see is this like time converter. This is just telling you in your like current time of day. And then so you can convert backtesting time. If you don't know military time, we try to give you little cheat sheets to help you. Basically though, what you'll come to if you want to trade a simpler version is this tab on the bottom. All these tabs you guys can see, that like has all our backtesting tabs on it, that you can find all of the data for it. But you want this one, NAS US 30. 15-minute plus CZL. That's consolidation zones live. Click on that. It'll pull up the data. This is our typical backtesting sheets where you guys can see like all the trades we take the pictures, we do, we show you guys all this stuff all the time. You can see each of the trades we mark up so you know that we're not just like making them up, and like you can see what examples look like. This is a little bit different than what I just showed you. It's a little more simplified. The settings are here for what you would need, as well as rules for entries. Like I said, there is a video, there are examples of buys and sells, and there's all kinds of stuff on here. Placement for the rules, all this stuff, how to do all of that. But what I just want to explain is this is available to do on the 15-minute time frame in a more simplified version where you don't need to use the 1 hour support and resistance or the 15-minute mid zone. I recommend learning them. I think that's where you're going to see much better win rates like what I'm showing you guys. It'll also help you weed out bad signals, like the false signals that you're getting. But if you're still learning and you want to play around with something like this, please do not use the 1 and 5 minute time frames just yet. You will just unnecessarily stress yourselves out. Just stick with the 15-minute time frame for now. And like I said, follow the rules. You can watch the video that's on there. And basically what you'll kind of look at, it's very rule-based, this one, so you can kind of see what our data looks like. We test out all the sessions so we can see good, bad, in between. But basically, for US 30 or NAS 100, if you're interested in trading them, that's what we tested this with. And you'd be looking at most likely trading mixed with NASDAQ. So you can see NAS up here, 15-minute for a 1.5 reward. You could be looking at a 52% win rate and a 29.5% gain. And then during New York session, 44.78 win rate, 8% gain. So mixed is the better overall session to be trading. Again, mixed is the first 4 hours of New York. And then you would be probably looking to be trading NASDAQ 100 during mixed. If you were looking to trade the second half of New York, you would just be looking here at the New York, and US 30 on the 15-minute time frame for a 1.5 reward does the best, which is a 58.57 win rate and a 32.5% gain so far for all the months that we've been testing it. This is cumulative data, but you guys get an idea that you can kind of look through the data. These sheets have lots of numbers on them. You guys can all play around with them on there and look at it, but basically, if I was to recommend you guys to trade the rule-based version on the 15-minute time frame, I would tell you that NAS 100 I would only trade during mixed session, and I would go for a 1.5 reward, and I would trade US 30 15-minute time frame on only New York, so that last half of New York. So if you're trading early in the morning, look for NAS. If you're trading kind of like the afternoon or the second half of New York, you would be looking for US 30. There is an option for the 2 reward as well, which doesn't look terrible if you're looking again at the appropriate sessions. NAS being mixed, 13% gain, and US 30 being on the second half, you'd be looking at 14% gain. But the win rates and the gains aren't as good as 1.5. So again, being smart with your rewards, taking the reward where you can, and if you can maximize it, if it is going to be that big move that really like could have gotten a crazy reward, that's where you just need to be smart about maybe taking partials or trailing or moving to break even, whatever you want to do at 1.5, but make sure that you are doing something to secure that trade around 1.5 rewards so you're not just losing whatever profit you could have had. Okay guys, I kind of dropped a bunch on you in this video, so I do apologize. So those of you who are looking for the free version to just use all indicators, I gave you all the indicators there are. Basically just use the settings that I showed you in the very beginning there. You will have to have 6 indicators on, which is a lot. So you will have to probably practice with that a little bit, but that's how you can do it. So you don't have to have the trading floors indicator, that's just there for convenience because when you put 6 indicators on, you're going to be like, wow, this is a lot, and we know it. We consolidated them all down into one customized one for the members so they could have the opportunity to do it with just 3 or less indicators. It is totally optional and up to you guys. If you are in the trading floor, this is how I've been doing it. You guys can go watch that 1-minute time frame video as well, where you can hear me in a live market kind of talking about it. Just note that video, I did take 0.5 rewards, but I explained that I do say, do as I say, not as I do. That's because that was literally the last day of a competition, and I was trying to just get my profits and be done for the day because I was trading for the competition and I was also trading for an undefeated record. So I do not suggest to go for 0.5s with the strategy. I am suggesting a 1.5. For majority of the time that I traded that month, I did target 1.5s. If you're looking to trade this on the 5-minute time frame, it is the same exact idea. You would just be looking for the sneakers to print, and as you can see, when we jump up a time frame, a sneaker printed and broke through on a 5-minute time frame at the same time that it did on a 1-minute. You'd still be looking at the same type of trade there. The only thing you didn't get was a second entry here today, so there was no sneaker that printed, so you would have only had this one win today. But that's the same idea on the 5-minute. It's just a little bit slower. So if you are still looking for a strategy to do where you could potentially get at least an entry a day, you could look at the 5-minute time frame. But it is a little slower as far as having to enter into the trades, not quite as fast moving as a 1-minute time frame. If you are unsure about support and resistance and mid levels, and you do not trust yourself yet, and you're not quite comfortable with your market analysis and putting a little bit of extra into it, then the 15-minute time frame where I was showing you that we have just using consolidation zones live and the StairMaster indicator with set rules, which there is a video on the website. You could watch that video. That video is this one, where it is the revamped one by me. And then there are rules here. They are all well explained. There's tons of examples. And then the data for that strategy are on here. So there's multiple ways you guys can trade this. Also, the pairs I went over earlier on. US 30, NASDAQ 100. We know gold works, we know Ethereum works, and the basic pairs, I know that they will work. Majority of the basic pairs do work. Just make sure you are trading them during the session when they are open and moving. I hope this was helpful. I hope it clarified some of the stuff that you needed help with, understanding a little bit more about. And I think this will be the last video before I start Strategy Wars Season 2. And I am going to be on StairMaster. So spoiler alert to those of you, I am going to be trading StairMaster again for Strategy Wars Season 2. So this is the first time I'm saying it. If you made it to the end of this video and you are going to be in Season 2 of Strategy Wars, which if you don't know anything about, I'll also link that too. I should link that for you guys. I'll link it up here in the right-hand corner. Go ahead, check out the podcast that we did where we talked about it. I can also link for you guys the original Strategy Wars video I did. That was Season 1, but Season 2 has a different vibe to it. It's actually going to be sports related, so less Game of Thrones, more sports type of betting vibes, and just trying to change it up a little bit, but the same idea is still there as far as the Strategy Wars and the different strategies that are going to be used in the competition. So if you guys are interested in knowing more about that, check out those videos above. That is it, you guys. I will see you in the next video. Bye.